Hello, my name is Benjamin Hart. I'm an American attorney and the Managing Director of Integrity Legal here in Bangkok, Thailand. As the title of this video suggests, we're discussing the so-called war on cash. I've seen this bandied about across the internet really over the past few years as more and more places are trying to go so-called cashless, and then there's all this discussion about so-called central bank digital currencies, which are kind of a different thing from digital currencies, things like Bitcoin or Ethereum. And I'm not going to claim to be any kind of expert on cryptocurrency, but I do understand what central bank digital currency would be, which is, yeah, we get to track and trace essentially, financial transactions, and we're going to replace cash with this sort of track and trace digital system, for lack of a better term. I got to thinking of making this video after reading a recent article from Thai PBS World. That's thaipbsworld.com. Article is titled, New Rule for Cash Deposit Machines from November 15th. Quoting directly, from November 15th, people who want to deposit cash via cash deposit machines, CDMs, in Thailand will be required to identify themselves by inserting their credit or debit cards and entering their personal identification number, PIN, or password. The new measure has been introduced by the Anti-Money Laundering Office and will be applied to all commercial banks to prevent the laundering of money earned from drug trafficking, illegal gambling, or other criminal activity. Wow. Where to begin with this? Obviously, this is not the same, although I have seen articles sort of out there in the internet ether talking about, from reputable sources talking about the possibility of Thailand having a central bank digital currency. Obviously, we're not anywhere near that, but this is a major change. For those who are unaware, cash deposit machines are used pretty heavily, especially by the cash economy here, which is substantial. There's a number of street vendors and things that, they don't want to be carrying around substantial amounts of cash, so they go to a cash deposit machine, and they usually get off in off hours. This isn't a 9-to-5 thing where they can walk into a bank branch and deposit money into their bank account. They're needing to do this at times when banks aren't open. I find this a little bit concerning because, I got to be honest with you, anytime I ever hear money laundering, it always kind of makes my ears burn. And I'll explain why. If you go back to 1987 and prior, there was no such thing as money laundering. This whole notion was created in the 80s. It's a legal construct. It did not exist. People's position at that time, and I think it was the correct position to have, was, hey man, your money is your money. What you do with it, is on you. Now, they kind of have, I don't know how to put it, conflated or have kind of tacked on, notions like drug trafficking, illegal gambling, other criminal activity. Okay, other criminal activity, well, whatever. You can always say anything is designed to deter criminal activity, but drug trafficking and illegal gambling, right. I'm pretty sure drug traffickers, at least major drug traffickers, are not wedging 1 million baht to go into a cash machine at 10 p.m. at night. But the guy that has a street food vending operation who made 8,500 baht, doesn't really want to carry it around and has other expenses he needs to deal with the next day. That guy goes to a cash deposit machine, throws his money in there, doesn't have to worry about it. He gets back a receipt, says the bank's got it, okay, that's in my account, off I go, and I don't need to worry about where all my money's at. So the drug trafficking angle, I have a problem believing that, and I could be wrong, but I have a problem believing that, Scarface was ever using the CDMs in Thailand to move large quantities of cash. It's just not designed that way. And then illegal gambling I find to be rather interesting because there are serious talks right now about legalizing gambling in Thailand. So, my question is this really necessary, or is it financial surveillance at the end of the day? And if it is financial surveillance, I'd kind of prefer it if they just said that's what it was, because at least they're being honest and it's like, okay, this is what we're doing. Again, I have issues with the whole notion of money laundering. I do understand it's one of those things that when it was created, there were issues. But at the time it was created, if you go back and kind of read the acts and you read about, I read a lot about this in law school. That's why I kind of know about this, is I did a project where I had to do pretty extensive research on sort of the jurisprudence of quote unquote money laundering. And when it came about, I mean, it was, you know, it's the usual thing. It's kind of how government goes. They come out and they say, well, this is for the very limited purpose of, you know, dealing with this specific issue. And then the next thing you know, it's everywhere. You know, I mean, you're always dealing with anti-money laundering. And it's kind of also one of those neat buzzwords that when people say it, it just kind of causes people in their mind to just click over and say, oh yeah, we need to do that. It's almost like a short circuit in people's brains where they're not really thinking, hey, what are they doing here? Because at the end of the day, what they're doing here is they're making it harder for people to just put money into their own bank account via cash deposit machine. Okay, it's not that much harder, you have to put a card in, but it's definitely surveilled where it once wasn't. So it definitely is a diminution, if you will, of people's privacy, especially when it comes to financial transactions.